And who can you relate to the most, my friend? All right. If you were operating and looking at this video through some sort of lens, which one of these three fellows can you just relate to the most? Are you like this guy, chest pumped out, you've got it right, you're invincible, you're unstoppable, there's nothing in life that you can't do, there's nothing in life that you won't try, you'll just give everything a shot. Why? Because you know there's just something about you. Or you're maybe a bit more like this guy, a bit more apprehensive. Oh, I'm just not sure if I can, I'm just not sure if I can't, I don't know if I should, perhaps I shouldn't, maybe I could, maybe I might, maybe I'll fail, I just don't know, maybe I'll just think about things for a little bit longer rather than acting and doing something, I just don't know. Or maybe you're a bit more like me, all right, somewhere in between. I want to present you with what I hope you'll find to be quite a relatable idea here. Now, this is a concept that I've taken from a conversation that I had around about 12 months ago in one of the Ecology Talks videos we created with a fantastic coach called Donnie Hall. Now, Donnie is a coach based, and I think he's in Florida in the US of A. I've not actually spoken to Donnie for a while now, but Donnie's main superpower is kind of like parenting. He teaches parenting skills, he's done a number of trainings. Excellent coach. I think he used to be a baseball trainer or baseball coach working with young people. So he's really learned and mastered how to communicate and relate and work with the younger generation. So I was having this conversation with him because what had become quite apparent to us through the interactions that we'd had was that we both have very different attitudes towards life. All right, now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is where I've come from. Believe it or not, I used to be a complete bag of nerves. When it would come to me stepping outside of the comfort zone, trying something new, turning my hand to a new technology, a new bit of software, a new gadget or a gizmo or something like this, I would generally just hesitate and hold off and hang about and just hope that placebo effect would happen. I would just hope that someone would come along and just make it all work for me, all right? I would shy away from trying new things because I was always petrified of failing. I was petrified of giving something a go and not being able to do it, and then ultimately what that might mean about me. Now, here in Scotland, we're a funny race and breed of people. Now, it's good for us sometimes to understand the history of our nation, i.e. where we've come from. So here in Scotland, we have a history of being overtaken and being, beaten up and, overwhelmed by the English. All right, it's one of these things. We've been invaded a number of times. If you've ever watched the movie Braveheart, that paints a relatively accurate picture of Scottish history and Scotland's relationship with England. And they would come up here and rape the women and steal the children and turn them into soldiers and do all this kind of stuff. Now, obviously, that's not a generalisation of how the English people are today, but that's where we've come from. Before then, we were invaded by the Vikings, and then we've got a little bit of Nordic bloodiness, which is perhaps why some people are a little bit fiery. Some of the guys, especially, very, very manly, tough men. Some of the ladies, even manlier. That's not a generalisation, that's just an observation that's come about through experience, all right? Some men are manly, some women are manlier than the manly men, just how things are here in Scotland. But generally, many people operate out of this inferiority complex, all right? Kind of like many of us are the underdogs. Now, there's a real issue with innovation here in Scotland. If we look at some of the government's main areas of focus at the moment, currently here in 2019, 2020, one of them is innovation. The Scottish Government is doing its best to encourage businesses, new startup businesses to set up, to pioneer, to create, to invent, to initiate. But it's having a problem, all right? Now, what I understand, it's not that people don't have ideas, it's not that people aren't creative, it's not that people aren't skilled or knowledgeable or competent, it's none of these things. Sometimes the problems that people think they have couldn't be further removed than from the problems that people actually have. I don't know anyone who can't do anything. I don't know anyone who's incapable of creating something fantastic. But I do know many people who just simply don't believe that they can. Many people who operate out of this inferiority complex, like I'm not as good as all of these other creative people out there. Give you an example. I think about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was having a conversation with Karen. I'm not sure if this was before we got married or after. Now, just to give you a little bit of history here, Karen has got a beautiful voice. She's got some songs on Spotify and iTunes, and Karen has been a singer and a pianist all of her life. Very musically gifted. I've never met anyone who can harmonise with herself 5 times over as effectively and as beautifully as what Karen can. And I remember having a conversation with her, Karen, why have you never done anything with your music? Why have you never really just pushed yourself in this area? Because you're not short on skill or talent or creative ability, but why have you never done anything with it? And Karen would say, well, I'm not good enough to do anything professional with my music. And me being me, understanding how it is that cognitive biases sometimes come into play, I said, that's interesting, not good enough compared to who? And Karen went on to respond. She said, well, I'm not good enough compared to Katy Perry back then. All right, Katy Perry was in the charts and doing her thing. And so I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as Katy Perry. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. Tell me, if you were to devote the rest of your life trying to be as good as Katy Perry, would you ever be as good as Katy Perry? And she said, well, no. And I said, well, why is that then? Karen said, because I never will be Katy Perry, because Katy Perry is Katy Perry, and there's only really room for one Katy Perry in the world. And I said, well, that's an interesting idea. So tell me, if there's only really room for one Katy Perry, does that mean that there's enough room for one Karen? Could you just simply commit to being you instead? And she said, oh, well, maybe, but I'm not sure if I'm good enough. And I said, says who? And she said, oh, no one said that really. And I said, does that mean that just you're assuming that you're not good enough? And this was kind of the issue. All right. Karen had spent pretty much her whole life comparing herself to other people. And we do this sometimes, don't we? We compare ourselves to not being as good as all these people who are out there doing fantastic, great things. Rather than just getting out there doing our best, we sometimes fail to appreciate that the only reason why there's people out there doing what we perceive as being great things is because they've been practicing getting permanently good at doing these things for years. All right? What I'm saying here is this inferiority effect can really stop and prevent people from even getting started in life. Right? It can leave people in this place of stagnicity, complete ineffectiveness. It'll leave some people working or operating inside of a dead-end job for an entire life because they never feel good enough just to start committing to doing that which they actually love, that which they enjoy. So this conversation with Donnie Hall, I realised this was kind of a mindset that I'd also been operating out of. Now, I've studied these life sciences inside out. I've applied them all to myself. But for the year or so before I started teaching, yes, I was coaching, I was practicing, and I'd reached the stage where I was able to help people get breakthroughs within 1 or 2 sessions, what perhaps maybe took me 6 or 7 or 8 sessions back in the earlier days. I was now able to help a person get a complete breakthrough in their thinking within 1 or 2 sessions. Why? Because I knew exactly what I was looking for. But I certainly didn't see myself as being effective. I was just doing what came naturally to me. It was when people started saying, Kane, you should be teaching other people how to do this stuff. I said, oh, no. No, I'm not good enough to teach. Compared to who? It's the inferiority complex. But Donnie Hall, he was very different across the pond, right? So I understand Scottish history, that we have this underdog mentality, cultural set of beliefs going on. And over in the US of A, or many parts of the USA, remember when was it, a couple of 100 years ago, when people were leaving, they were immigrating, the mass immigrations, people were leaving the United Kingdom, going across, pioneering, looking for new lands. That's when America was founded by the founding fathers and all that sort of thing. And they were conquering, in God we trust. So they weren't just, operating out of this placebo effect. we're just going to sit here in a room and just, be in faith that we're going to discover new places. No, they got on boats, they sailed the seas, they found new lands. Sometimes bad things happened to them, but then the United States of America was born because they pioneered, they innovated, they took ground. And what Donnie was talking about was how he'd operated and functioned out of a very different mindset when he would tackle problems or try new things than what I historically ever had done. Where this would be me, this was Donnie, all right? Donnie would tackle new situations, new challenges, boom. Anything I turn my hand to, I will overcome, all right? Which was fantastic on many instances, on many occasions. Until those instances or occasions where he perhaps bit off a little bit more than he could chew, sometimes he got a little bit overconfident. Where here, operating out of the inferiority effect, we're underconfident. Sometimes we operate out of the Superman complex, where we become prideful, arrogant, and overcompetent. All right? Where we end up failing miserably, and then people who operate out of this, who believe they can do everything when they discover that they can't, they end up crushed emotionally. Depression can hit some people pretty hard when the little bubble bursts. My goodness, I thought I was Superman and I've only just discovered that I'm not. My goodness, what does that therefore then mean about me? So I share with you this idea because this is kind of like a scale, isn't it? It's a scale upon which we live in life. And you're going to be somewhere on the scale. You'll be functioning fully in the inferiority complex, holding back, waiting for the day that door opens for you and that someone gives you that golden ticket, that great opportunity to do those things in life that you really want to do. Or you're going to be going full steam ahead, kind of like Superman. You've got your superpowers, your go, extreme highs, extreme lows. What I'm going to suggest is kind of a sweet spot in between. I like to verge on the edge of caution, all right? Not because of fear, not because of reluctance or hesitance, but because sometimes we've just got to choose to fight the right battles. Sometimes we've got to choose our fights wisely. Historically, in the past, when I started understanding these two different mindsets, I thought, right, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to start being more like this. So I would throw myself into things, throw myself into events, projects, jobs, tasks, roles, sometimes even relationships, just full guns blazing and give too much, end up being taken for granted or something like this. So it's understanding that whilst Superman lives at one end of the spectrum, this guy here lives at the opposite end of the spectrum. And it's good, it's wise, it's healthy and wholesome and balanced for us just to be aware not to get too ahead of ourselves, not to put ourselves on a pedestal and see ourselves as being invincible. But it's also certainly not helpful seeing ourselves as the underdog or useless. What we want to understand and be working towards is growth. That's it, just growth. As long as we are stepping outside the comfort zone, taking risks, taking action steps, and the reason why I'm talking to you in this context is because life is progressive and it's only progressive when we're taking action. We can have all the greatest hopes and dreams and ambitions and goals that we want to, but yet if we do nothing, then nothing will change. And if we do nothing, this can sometimes be because of this inferiority complex or this inferiority effect. Sometimes we will do too much and sometimes get ahead of ourselves or overwhelm ourselves, burn ourselves out, which can be because of Superman complex. So it's just about us understanding these two approaches we can take towards life and aiming for that sweet spot in between. If we understand what side of the fence we naturally tend to operate out of or from, then it'll really help us to identify where our clients and other people are also operating out of. If you see a person head down, go, all guns blazing, it's most likely because they're operating out of Superman complex. If you see a person struggling to get started, then their inferiority effects perhaps kicking into play. Then all this really leads us to do is ask the questions, why? Where does this come from? Where did we learn that we are inferior? Where did we learn that we are superior? And this is sometimes a great starting point for leading other people, into this journey of self-reflection, which ultimately aids self-awareness. So what I'm going to do In the next video, I'm going to invite Karen to come and join me for the first time in the course. And what we're going to do is just have a discussion, right? Because I know that this principle has been a really big one for Karen in the past. So what we're going to discuss is the inferiority effect, the Superman complex, and how this has outworked itself in her life, and how it's also impacted her results, her outcomes, and the consequences of her actions. So I'm sure that on some level you're going to be able to relate.